what Tupac said on All Eyes on Me.
Mm.
Heard a rumor I died, murdered in cold blood, dramatized. Pictures of me in my final stages. You know, mama cried. That shit was fiction. Some coward got the story twisted, like I no longer existed, mysteriously missing. Right? He was telling you something. He was telling you something. Right before your very eyes, you won't even realize you can't see me. I'm standing right here and you can't see me. He was with Shock G at the All Eyes on Me premiere.
R.I.P. to Shock G. Shock G from my hood. He from Tampa.
Yeah. Look, you ain't got to R.I.P. Shock G. You can say until we see you in the future.
Yes, sir.
When Pac come back, he coming back with an entourage. It's gonna be they gonna call it the Dead Celebrity Ball.
Listen, and I just had a block party in heaven, and I'm telling you, like,
look, the one that's gonna twist everybody cap back is a guy named Kurt Cobain.
Speak to him. Speak to him. Speak to him.
With people who pass away, why do they know about that? I know Matter wants to come in. Can you talk to me a little bit about cryogenics?
They got that technology from the people that was under the ice in Antarctica. They was telepathically communicating with the scientists because they wanted to throw them out and preserve them alive. And the scientists couldn't figure out. So if you pay attention, cryogenics has been around since the 50s.
Yes.
Admiral Richard Byrd went to Antarctica about the 30s.
Yeah, I was going to say the 30s when he was in Antarctica.
Right. So when they found the people under the ice, they thawed them out. If you go on TikTok and type in Bashinga tribe, the backstory they gave us is they brought these people from Africa and turned them loose in Antarctica and they thrived. That's not the true story. The real story is they thawed them people out from under the ice and they was already used to being cold. So once they thawed them out, it wasn't difficult for them to adapt to conditions of the ice, and they was already at home.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, we there's so much stuff that you said. We've already had the technology that's here now. It's ancient.
It's ancient.
Right.
Yeah. Like when we talk about the med beds and the healing chambers in the ancient writings, they just call them sarcophagi.
Sonetter, he's touching on what I was telling you about the resurrection chambers. That's what we call today healing pod. Wow.
Right? The med bed is a sarcophagi. The healing pod is a resurrection chamber. It can actually regenerate lost limbs.
Thank you.
And missing organs inside the body.
They were laughing at me.
It regenerates you from your genetic blueprint. It reads your biology and then it matches to your genetic blueprint. If your genetic blueprint say that you're supposed to have a foot, but there's no foot here, it can stimulate the growth of the foot. That's what keloids is from.
Oh wow!
Because the Atlanteans had used the chamber so long, they learned how to mimic the chamber with the mind.
Okay,
but since we forgot, we can't grow a new ear, but we can grow a big ass keloid.
That makes sense, though. Yeah, and also possibly, Chief, it could. Yeah, wow. Oh no, it's not normal, but it's just
be a planet. Because the planet has took on a solid shape because somebody's watching it. It's no longer a wave. So you're talking about like the double slit experiment where the observer causes the wave to collapse into the particle. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
but then outside, go ahead.
So the observer of the planet is still the person that's looking through the telescope. So you still gonna have the effect of the wave collapse. Nothing, every reality that we postulate is false in the 3D. Because tomorrow not here because we ain't created it yet. Yesterday gone because we used it up already. Right? So we burned down yesterday in order to build tomorrow, but too many of us getting stuck today. Because we can't shift the paradigm until enough of us agree to shift the paradigm. So whether it's flat earth, round earth, hollow earth, they all right and they all wrong at the same time in the 3D. Because the wave have to collapse into a particle. So in the wave state, it's an infinite plane. In the particle state, it becomes a torsion field because all things that form into that shape forms the torsion field. The torsion field is replicated by every planet as an atmosphere and every human as a whole. Right? So you either going to see the wave form or the collapse form. Right? Then some people see the middle. They see a concave earth or a convex earth because of the perspective and the angle in which they collapse into atoms on the perception of their reality. So everybody right and everybody wrong because it's all in the process of creation. You got to have enough people agree or disagree. This ain't the first time it's been a hot, heated debate about flat earth, round earth. Why do it periodically come up and what's the pattern? It normally comes up at the close of the age. The reason it normally comes up at the close of the age because all paradigms have to be challenged for the creator guys to collapse the wave into the particle to see the reality that they choose to see. It's a group effort, but don't nobody know they being participated because you have the people they call gatekeepers leading the pack on telling you what you need to be seeing in order for you to collapse with them the reality that they want you to produce on their behalf. And so the observer is still the individual. All the individuals are the observers, collapsing the waves into the particles of reality.
Can we get downloads from those particles as well?
You can read them like you reading the streamer in the Matrix. You could trace an idea back to a source because it's only a frequency. Anything a machine can do by following the frequency, the mind can do the same. It's just that we not taught or told how to use the mind to the capacity of imitating the machine. You got doulas that could look at a woman when she walk in the door and tell her exactly the day and the time she about to give birth within seconds. But you got doctors that's been practicing medicine for 60 years have to do a whole bunch of tests because he can't figure it out the exact day without his test. Because he can't read the collapse of the wave into the particle that result in the birth of the baby as well as the trained doula. Because she's trained to use other senses than machine, but the doctor trained to use the machines to do it for him.
All right. Rebel Rasta, you ready? Rebel Rasta.
Yeah, bless up, sir.
Bless up.
All right.
Yeah, man. Bless up, brother Hayes. You don't know, big up yourself, Sakina Ra. Now, bless up yourself. I Rastafari. So that's right. But I heard you said something to an extent of we coming down here. So I would like you to expound because you know the Dogans talk about us coming from the stars. But I would like to make the connection also that we didn't come from the stars or we came from the stars. And how did we come through our mom's portal from the dad's seed? And you're saying like we come from somewhere to down here. So like, you know, elaborate and kind of make the connection for me, please.
The father's seed is secondary in creation. The Y chromosome is an X with an atrophied appendix, and it has about 30% less genetic information than an X chromosome, right? The reason why is that the mutation was activated in a prior time by the will of the feminine to change the makeup and structure to produce the masculine, right? Credo Mutua give it to us in the separating of genders through the red light and the blue light. So, but this is metaphoric for the training of the royal family. The red house trains the mother's children and the blue house trains the father's children. This became your Scottish Rite and York Rite Masons, right? Now, the hierarchy of what they call principalities, which is frequency waves of the earth, the people first have to call on a personal family leader, who then calls on the community leader. The community leader then calls upon the multiple community leader. So the grievances vex go through a chain of command on the father line as the ruler line, the governors of the mother's realm, guardians of the sacred yoni, protector of women. So in the process of the training, he has to understand what he's protecting in order for him to be an effective protector. So the reduced genetic matter caused the man to take on a different form as the woman in order to be her protector. But all zygotes, meaning the children, before the mother sends them the permission to convert gender, are female. They become, once her chemistry determines she's going to let the Y chromosome activate, she changes the gender to male in utero. The male then forms into the masculine protector of the feminine. Then once this happens, she produces a male child. But the source still has to trace back to the powerhouse of the cell called mitochondria. Now, because of the missing genetic matter, the men cannot pass mitochondria, but it's required to power the cell of the masculine. The process by which the mother selects the son's wife is by frequency of mitochondria. She don't never have to personally meet her, but the mitochondrial frequencies have to match the unconditional love frequency. And this frequency is what's the sacred marriage or the holy marriage, the uniting of Tahuti and Isis, or the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine being joined as one in order to be a pair of gods as co-creators of the reality. And it's known as the holy drama, as it's played out in the story of Osiris and Isis. And the Dogons also teach the holy drama, but they don't teach it exoterically, they teach it esoterically. The exoteric is the arrival of the Syrians in order to give from Sirius B in order to deliver. We know that they told us, they put it in the public domain, that the spell was broken. This was the George Washington Challenge. The George Washington Challenge was a pact made in Masonic lodges. This is why it's not part of his public record, but they can't take it out of the public domain. They have to leave it in the public domain in some fashion or form for us to recover the information and put the story together. Now, we done went over this before, but this is when they put the tribes with the conquistadors, Huguenots, and gentry under one determination of black, right? And the reason why they done that is because we was the ones responsible to break the spell Either the righteous Moors is going to win or the dirty Moors is going to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
It said we would agree to take the feathers and turbans off the Moors' heads and remove the sandals from their feet. You see when it says sandals, when the Europeans came over here, the French, Italians, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the English, they wore something called buckle shoes. We all remember the buckle shoes. We went over that, Elder.
Mm-hmm.
But our moccasins, they call sandals. Enforce severe punishments. This is reiterated by, nonetheless, I think it was John D. Rockefeller, which is going to tie back into this when we go back to the origin of the hope, or the origin of the blood contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, swear a death oath. The death oath is called the most vile and bloody oath of the papacy. We already went over that.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody that want to see it, it's online. You can look it up. It's called the most vile and bloody oath of the papacy. That's their death oath. Between ourselves to religiously, that means they're going to use religion, and faithfully, and they're going to use faith-based organizations not to allow anyone to teach the Moorish children, or block us out of the education, who they really were and who their forefathers were, and only allow the Moorish children to be taught that they were truly Negroes, black people, and colored folks. 200 years from today, the Moorish people would not know their nationality, nor their national name, or their forefathers. Also, they would not know from which land or ancestors that they descended from. So all of those means is in there. Now, it's a couple things we need to know of terms. This term called patsy, right? Now, remember, we're talking Machiavellianism. When we're looking at these definitions or these descriptions that AI print out, it's going to tell us the background to the term patsy, which is a person that takes the fall for somebody else's wrongdoing. The person that took the fall is called a patsy, right? And it was tied to several different points of origin. As we see right here, it's the Italian influence. Some believe it derives from the Italian word pazzo, meaning madman, or the Southern Italian word paccio, which is also tied to Pinocchio, meaning fool. After Italian immigration to America, pazzo might have been Americanized as patsy and used to describe a gullible or easily deceived individual. Now we're talking Keefe D. Now, when they say vaudeville, remember, DC is political satire. Hollywood is actual big screen satire. It's all comedy. It's comedy, it's drama, it's vaudeville. Vaudeville was the plays they used to put on, and the traveling minstrel shows had what they call vaudeville acts, where they did plays and other things. It's another strong possibility traces the term patsy to Patsy Bolivar, a character in a late 19th century vaudeville skit who was always blamed when things went wrong. This character may have become a popular image of someone who takes the fall for others, right? That particular play was based on a true story. It wasn't a true story in and of itself, but it was based on one. The Irish connection. There's also a theory connecting Patsy to the Irish-American diminutive to the name Patrick. In this context, Patsy was initially used as an underworld adjective for all is well, which evolved into sucker.
Wow.
The Pazzi family. Now, this is between two warring families in Italy. You had the Pazzi family and the Medici family. Prince Niccolo Machiavelli was the advisor from prison to the rising prince named Leonardo di Piero Medici. That means lion of the dog of the Medici clan, which is a Jewish story, the lion and the fox. Is what they're talking about. The lion and the fox is the quintessential characters of the perfected leader. Right. So when they tell you the story of Machiavelli or Niccolo Machiavelli, he was a part of the fallen order. When the order fell, all of the advisors to the old royal family, the Pazzi family, was rounded up, and that's who Niccolo Machiavelli was originally working for when he started before he got locked up. When he got locked up, he assessed all of the princes of the Medici family, and up on his assessment determined that the most likely Medici to become the king would be the prince named Leonardo di Piero Medici. And so he started courting him through letters. He was writing letters back and forth, trying to get his attention so that he can work his way from out of prison by advising the prince that's about to become the king on showing his prowess as an advisor. Smart. So first thing he wrote in was a series of letters. Right. These letters is in a book called The Discourse by Niccolo Machiavelli. It's Discourses. Then he asked the prince asked him to give him a treatise on war, and he wrote a book called On War by Niccolo Machiavelli, where there's a discussion between the NCO general and the general that worked his way, a commissioned officer who came in through school. So you had one that was educated in warfare and one who had rose the ranks that was going through the actual warring on the battlefield all the way up to the rank of general. He was eventually raised. So that's the art of war. That's his On War. And their discussion is war strategy. So he sent that to him. And then his most prominent work is The Prince. The Prince is instructing Leonardo on what the prince that aspired to be king need to know in order to hold his positions of power as the king. But first he has to become a crown prince capable of seizing the throne by blood and by right, and also outshining all the rest of his adversaries. So the Pazzi family is who their major conflict was. So some sources suggest a link to the Pazzi family of the 15th century Florence, who were involved in a failed attack on the Medici family and were punished severely. However, this theory is less likely due to the timeline. The word Pazzi as a fall guy was first recorded much later, around 1900. Right? So, in summary, while the exact origin of Pazzi is debated, it likely stems from a combination of influence, including Italian term for the fool or madman, and the popularized vaudeville character who served as a scapegoat.
Wow. This makes sense now. It's a connection right here. I needed this piece. Let's go to the other piece.
Okay, now this word is martyr. A martyr, it tells you here. So we know Jesus was a martyr. We know Malcolm was a martyr. Martin was a martyr. Gandhi was a martyr. And there's a whole bunch of other ones. But the word martyr originates from the Greek word martys, meaning witness. In its original context, it referred to a person who gives testimony, often in a legal setting. However, the term evolved to encompass those who suffered death for their faith, particularly in the context of early Christian persecution. Right? So when the Christians was killing people for not betraying what they believed, that person was classified as a martyr. Right? So you have both Christian martyrs and non-Christian martyrs. You have so-called Jewish martyrs who died for the Jewish faith, and then you have Islamic martyrs, like the ones who put on the vest in Kabul. They can stay considered as martyrs for Islam and the freedom of Palestine. Right? In the dictionary, it says a person who is killed because of their religious or other beliefs is a martyr. A person who displays an exact or exaggerates their discomfort or distress in order to obtain sympathy or admiration. That's actually a pseudo martyr. There's a person pretending to be the martyr, the second definition. Right? So we wanted to know what these words mean. And this is why, because the martyr for the American Revolution is the one with what they call first blood power of sacrifice. What means by power of sacrifice, meaning that the first blood is the blood required for a sacrifice to be is most functional. Let me get a drink, Al.
Take a drink. Hey, y'all, hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, man. We're about to get lit.
Okay. So I say the first blood holds the power of sacrifice. Can be interpreted in various ways, particularly within a religious context, where the shedding of blood often symbolizes sacrifice, atonement, and redemption. Got it? Biblical interpretation. First sacrifice in the Bible. The shedding of blood first appears in the biblical narrative when God provided animal skins to cover Adam and Eve after they sinned. This sacrifice is seen as atonement for their sins and foreshadows the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Right? The power of the blood. Blood is closely linked to life and sacrifice in the Old and New Testament. Leviticus 17:11 states, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is in the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul." Right? That's called blood right. See, Jesus' blood sacrifice. This is where they say they martyred Jesus. The blood of Jesus is seen as the ultimate sacrifice for humanity's sins. His sacrifice made once can cleanse all sin, grant redemption, and allow believers to enter God's presence. Covered in blood. Let that sink in. I don't know what God they're talking about. Sacrifice and atonement. Across different traditions, blood sacrifice often symbolizes the surrender of something precious to appease a higher power or to atone for a wrongdoing. The shedding of blood representing life has a significant impact on releasing power or achieving redemption. That's real important. The significant impact on releasing power and achieving redemption. So you can use the blood to gain power, and you can also use the blood to redeem the power. Right? Protection and preservation. In some belief systems, blood sacrifice is linked to protection and preservation. For instance, in the Passover story, the blood on doorposts marked the house of the Israelites for deliverance from the plague. Right? In summary, the phrase first blood holds the power of sacrifice highlights the belief that the initial blood sacrifice holds significant power in terms of atonement, redemption, protection, and the ability to affect change by giving something precious for a greater purpose. Right? So the George Washington conjure is enforced by the blood sacrifice of Crispus Attucks. Now, the origin story well, before we go into the origin story, Elder, the also in the description is the video I did with B-Dale on blood sacrifice, where we go way deeper into blood sacrifice than we going in over here. But we have to know it was the first blood sacrifice that they used to put us in the sleep state to keep us, and they enforced it with harsh punishment, mistreatment, and abuse. And our enemies never stopped murdering us. Even when we stopped fighting them, they still never stopped murdering us. They still never stopped killing us. They still never stopped feeding us to the beast. They even infiltrated our organizations. Now remember, when they infiltrated Garvey didn't have no pale faces in his organization. He had pale faces that he knew, that he spoke to about the conditions of the people. But in his organization, the only people that could infiltrate the UNIA was somebody that looked like us. The same thing go for Noble Drew Ali. The same thing go for Elijah Muhammad. The same thing go for Yahweh bin Yahweh. And I can keep going down the list. But they've been using this pattern of infiltration and subversion. And the origin story goes back not to John D. Rockefeller, but to the wizard. The quintessential wizard is John D., who was this, but the one that was before her. So the ones that carried the weight of the conjure, Rockefellers, right, was also instrumental with advisory to the Queen, Elizabeth. And you got to see everything coming out of the conjure you seen going in the conjure. We just seen it in the mirror effect in a different position, but having the same fundamental function.
Years old when I found out.
John D.
No. Okay, hold on. Before you go to this. Okay, so you see in the last video, it told you about John D. Rockefeller's father being called the devil. We see that John D. Rockefeller was one of the founders of the modern system of education.
Right.
Under him, you had two psychologists who worked at different times for the Rockefeller Foundation, who funded a lot of these nefarious psychological training programs. You had Ivan Pavlov, who was a Khazarian from Russia, and then you had B.F. Skinner, right? Who I think he was from Canada,
Right.
So they were the ones instrumental in creating what's called the condition response system and the four walls closed method. The four walls closed method is derived from something called a Skinner box. So y'all can look up a Skinner box and see what I'm talking about. He ruined his daughter with a Skinner box. Okay, and Ivan Pavlov was the one who discovered something called condition response, but he was under the Bolsheviks. So they had to leak the information out through spy channels to get it over here to the Rockefellers to use in the development of modern education. We are not being educated at school. We are being socially programmed to be self-destructive. In the origin, and the person that dug up all of this from ancient records, name was John D., who became an advisor to Queen Elizabeth way back in the day. He gave her a 200-year program that wasn't implemented until the George Washington Challenge around 1776. And that program was a blood right ritual, right? You're going to hear them talk about something called Enochian magic. The Enochian magic system is an ancient magic system that John D. was exposed to somewhere, that he began to put the pieces together on how to entrance large groups of people using the blood sacrifice. But the rank have to be consistent with the reaction of the people. So this tell you that Crispus Attucks, who they keep claiming was a mixed American, but he wasn't. He was a full-blooded American. Always been here, bloodline ancient.
Right. That's right.
And so the reason why they have to always tell you he was the first person to die in the American Revolution is so that we will be able to identify what's called the sacrifice of the first blood. By identifying that, it tells you how to break the conjure is exposing it to as many people affected by the conjure as possible. That's the only way to break it.
Okay.
And so we go over who John D was, and y'all get to understand the magnitude of all of this sorcery and
connection there with the John Deere, the one that
John was one of the most popular names that they would call us.
Go ahead.
You know he was native because his last name was Deere.
Go ahead.
Well, all of us over here, all of our last names was either tied to our family's profession or our totem animal. The oldest tribes use totem animals to name themselves after. Right. This is why you get people named John Elk, John Deere. You know what I'm saying?
Bear.
Yeah.
Bear. Yeah.
Yeah. All of them come from native bloodlines. They don't come from. That's why they carry that. Now they could be. Some of them could have been passing and integrated into European culture over here and still carry that name because they still carry the blood. Right. You only need one drop of blood. Okay, so that was one. It's a real long one on here. We're not gonna watch, Elder, unless you want to. But it's another. So now, when we talk about first blood, now look, the first person to die in the American Revolution was Crispus Attucks, right? A mixed race man, and I want you to tell you he was a high chief who was killed in the Boston Massacre on March the 5th, 1777. That's what set off the Civil War. He was shot by British soldiers during a confrontation that escalated into the event known as the Boston Massacre. Attucks was a sailor and is now considered the first martyr of the American Revolution.
Right.
So now you see why we went over martyr. Right? Because what was he fighting for? He was fighting to liberate the tribes from the parasites called the British. That's what he was fighting against. The British is in control of your police force. The British is the same as saying the English. We just say that when you say England, you're saying a small part of the British. It consists of 5 islands or 5 pieces of land, right? But when you say English, England is one of the British territories. They 5 land pieces of land territories, right? So you see how it started during the confrontation, right? That escalated into the Boston Massacre, right? So around this time, we talking Boston Tea Party, where people dressed up like Indians to protest the tax that the British was putting on the tea, the 2% sales tax.
And the British were the Moors, right? The British were Moors.
The Moorish gentry, they was gents.
Yeah.
Right. But remember, the people that's dressing up like they Indians to raid the ships in the Boston Tea Party, they was masquerading as us. Why would they masquerade as us?
Right. The Mohawk tribe.
Okay, now they have to look like us to act like us.
Right.
Or the other people would have knew that it wasn't us. If they was pale faces dressed up like us, then the rest of the pale faces would have knew that them ain't them ones.
Yeah, that makes sense, Rod. Go ahead. I didn't think about that.
Right. Now, in the colonist grievance was, according to the history books, the colonists was the ones mad about the tax. We don't give them about the tax to Britain. We want y'all off the land. This is what Crispus Attucks is dying for.
Yeah.
Right, because y'all came in wreaking havoc out the gate. History's already told us all of this stuff, but what do it mean is the hard part of reading what's being told. When John D say he was coding stuff, he's talking about Shakespeare in the Bible, right? Who shakes spears? Only two people on the earth is known for shaking spears: Americans and Africans.
Right.
So let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah, that's heavy duty right there.
Who is the flaming spear?
Right.
That the natives call the flaming arrow. Right? So the reason why this is in the Elder, if you could scroll to the bottom so I can see what it say. It's more than one Big Mama on the land, just like it's more than one chief on the land.
Go ahead.
This is the breaking of the spell edition, right? On Big Mama's land. To all the Big Mamas on the land, this is how the deception worked. With the blood conjure magic and the blood of Crispus Attucks, they wrote a constitution that was supposed to last until 1776. But we gave them an extension because we went back to war and we in Elder.
1812.
Yep. Which gave them 200 years to be up in 2012. The only reason why we still lingering around is because all of the chiefs that knew what was going on didn't know how to explain it. So I had to get drafted from my regular life that I had built for myself at the prison, where I had everything I wanted. I had to give it all up in order to give y'all everything y'all need in order to break the spell. Happy Friday the 13th. Frida Day. Frida Day.
That's fair.
So Malachi, book 4. 4 mean four corner shuffle. Right? The four corner shuffle is the 4 X's. The 4 X's is the motherland, daughters, to daughter to mother. So this is the information that the women need to know more than the men. Right? Because somewhere along the line, they didn't also use some other, what we call yoni blood magic. Right? And only the women can track that down because it's tied to the portal. And they had to come together in agreement to break the final branch of the spell, which was the menstrual blood ritual that followed the sacrifice to Crispus Attucks. So any of the sisters out there that's mediums, track that energy down. And if you tell me the story, I can remember exactly where to find the receipts. So pull out your tarot cards, your runes, your divination tools, your candle, right? Whatever it takes, because that's the only things that the women gotta agree that the yoni magic can't be used to help hold us in bondage any longer because the core spell is broke. Right? And this is part of the Right Knowledge series. Now remember, everything we do, Elder, in the public domain. Public notice for all of the tribes. Notice to agent is notice to principal.
That's right.
Once we put it in the public domain in the oral tradition of the people, and the people have free access to it, then they get to teach one, spread the story so you can show them the receipts to understand the conjure work in order for the sisters to break us free.
Go ahead.
So it's up to the feminine to call back all of the feminine rogue energy. Rogue is another way of saying rouge. Rouge means red. Red is the reference to the blood out of the red house. And every drop of blood counts. It's one drop unaccounted for.
All right, that's the last one, Rod. I got some questions for you then.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Let me go back. Let's see.
Hold on, Elder. You remember when they say John D put a spell on the Spanish Armada?
Yeah.
Remember when they said that? So, what was the spell? They never told us what they were supposed to do, but it was Spanish. What else happened around this time, right after the American Revolution, that tied to the Spanish Armada? Or you might call it Morocco.
I'm going to say that the peace, the treaty happened
Yeah.
78,
yeah.
and the Illuminati
Right, because
right around the same time too.
all that stuff is tied together. Right.
Yeah, I know.
And the only reason we know about it is because we're supposed to put it back together in the digestible format. Elijah Muhammad said that we got to make it plain enough for a baby to understand it. We can't get more simpler than we been, with the receipts being there to guide the vision to see the problem.
Hey, so what was
Let me give them the solution.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because we had everybody trying to take advantage of us because they say we were so nice. Christopher Columbus. Now this is the thing. Okay, so they said we ain't have guns. Christopher Columbus allegedly said in his diaries that we didn't have guns, and that because we didn't have guns, and that the way he described it, because I just picture based on what he said. He said that we were afraid almost of this type of weapon, or this type of things like he said they were fearful of this gun. So he talking as if we didn't know what guns was when the Moors came over here. They used to have guns like the British. Everybody before he did.
Okay, let me deal with that.
Okay.
This is how you know that guns is nothing new. They just name been changed over the millennia to protect the guilty. If you go back to the Dogon, when they was given instructions by the Momo, right? They said, do not partake in the projectile weaponry. It is forbidden for you. They don't use guns to this day.
I think I heard something like that, but when they said I thought they were talking about a slingshot or something.
Talking about the guns. The guns. Before you come with energy-based weapons, when a new civilization is on the rise, it's going to always figure out projectiles first. Because it's the easiest thing to discover. Picking up a rock and throwing it. Your arm is a projectile weapon. You're slinging a projectile. But it's going to evolve where you figure out how to make the projectile deadly. This is backing it up with some extreme power under pressure, like gunpowder.
That's right.
Encased in the shell, capped with a slug. Right? So the guns ain't nothing new. Right? They got different kinds of guns in ancient literature, but they not the kind of like, for instance, they got ancient Chinese guns that was like a Gatling gun and shoot a whole bunch of like bottle rockets at you at one time, like 100 of them. So it's been around a long time.
Now this is the thing, man. So the British, it seemed like to me, the Moors was taking advantage of us at the same time, but then it's like it was different groups. Like one group was only protecting their people. Like they had Muslim Moors over here, they were protecting them. Just like the peace in the treaty, it said that we want to only protect our people, the American citizens, the Moors. That's American citizens. That's what the Morocco said. Then it said nothing about indigenous people, right? And then, but a lot of people make that when they say, when the Moors made that statement, they were talking about indigenous people. Those American citizens were indigenous people, right?
Okay, now you gotta remember, a lot of what they attributing to the Moors is actually done in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Right, because Morocco only been Morocco since this 1900s.
Yeah.
The flag came from Noble Drew Ali, who had it first, which came from an ancient Indian flag from over here, which was actually a banner. Then they took it over there and established Morocco. But Morocco, like everybody's saying, ancient Morocco, not ancient. It's not even 150 years old yet, right? And all of this is part of us when we understand that they use this magic conjure to put us under a hypnotic spell, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hypnotic spell was enforced through, because you have to do, when you do a conjure of that magnitude, you have to have what's called a maintenance system. If the maintenance system starts to break down, the power over the spell will break, because nobody's maintaining the conjure. And so this is why you had an 1812. They didn't understand fully how the conjure worked. They were still figuring it out. Right? But the spell began to break off the people. And war broke out.
Yeah, so this is the thing. So with the American Revolution and these guys, cause we building up to it. These guys got brought over here by the Moors. These criminals, they were convicts that were starting the 13 colonies. They were like mostly convicts, and the convicts were working for dirty Moors, working for Moors.
They were all indentures. They was called indentures when they came over. They wasn't called criminals yet.
Okay. Yeah,
they was called in, right? Yeah. Because in Europe, see, you got